The story unfolds on Sumba, a remote and unforgiving island in Indonesia where dry mountains, cracked earth, and endless barren land define everyday life. Human presence is sparse, and homes stand far apart, reinforcing a deep sense of isolation. In this harsh landscape, survival depends less on law or justice and more on strength, fear, and tradition. It is a place where modern systems barely exist and old customs continue to shape how people live, mourn, and endure loss. Within this environment lives Marlena, alone in a small wooden house surrounded by silence. Her husband has recently died, yet his body remains inside the home, wrapped carefully and placed in a corner. This is not an act of neglect but a reflection of local customs, where the dead are kept until the family can afford proper burial rituals. The presence of her husband's body turns the house into a space of grief and waiting. Suspended between life and death, Marlena moves through her days carrying both emotional and physical weight, sharing her living space with loss itself. The isolation of Marlena's life becomes immediately apparent. There are no nearby neighbors, no quick access to help, and no sense of protection. Her home sits alone against the vast emptiness of the land, making her invisible and exposed. In such a setting, vulnerability is not just emotional but physical. Anyone who chooses to exploit her isolation can do so without fear of consequences. This reality is deeply embedded in the social structure of the island, where power belongs to those who can impose it. Marcus, a local thug, embodies this imbalance of power. He arrives at Marlena's home uninvited, parking his motorcycle outside and scanning the area with confidence. Armed with a sword at his waist, he represents the unspoken rule of the land. Force overrides consent. His reputation precedes him, and his lack of fear reflects a system where intimidation replaces law. When he enters Marlena's house without permission, he does so with the assumption that resistance is impossible. Marlena's reaction is restrained and quiet, shaped by years of endurance rather than submission. She does not confront Marcus openly, not because she accepts his authority, but because she understands the danger of defiance in a place like this. Her silence reflects the reality of many lives shaped by isolation and powerlessness, where survival often requires patience rather than confrontation. The absence of witnesses, law enforcement, or community support leaves her trapped in a situation where every choice carries risk. This opening establishes a world governed by imbalance and fear, where tradition coexists with brutality, and isolation strips individuals of protection. Marlena's life on Sumba is not merely lonely. It is defined by systemic vulnerability. The land itself mirrors her condition: dry, exposed, and unguarded, setting the foundation for a story where survival demands courage, intelligence, and the will to reclaim control in a place that offers none. Marcus represents the raw and unchecked brutality that dominates life on the isolated island of Sumba. From the moment he enters Marlena's home, his behavior reflects a sense of absolute entitlement. He does not ask for permission or show respect. Instead, he behaves as though the house, the land, and even Marlena herself already belong to him. His confidence is not rooted in strength alone, but in the knowledge that there will be no consequences for his actions. In a place where law enforcement is distant and community protection is non-existent, men like Marcus thrive on fear and silence. Marcus quickly makes it clear that he sees Marlena not as a person but as an opportunity. He speaks casually about taking her livestock, fully aware that these animals are her only means of survival. To him, her loss is insignificant compared to his own needs. Hunger becomes his excuse, and violence his solution. When he mentions that his 6 companions will soon arrive, the threat intensifies. The numbers alone turn resistance into a deadly gamble, reinforcing the idea that Marlena has no power in this situation. As Marcus's men arrive, the house transforms from a place of mourning into a site of terror. The group drinks, laughs, and openly discusses the order in which they will take turns violating Marlena. Their conversation is casual and cruel, exposing how normalized such violence has become for them. They see her isolation as permission, her widowhood as weakness, and her silence as consent. Marcus positions himself as the leader, claiming the first right over her body simply because he arrived first. This moment strips away any illusion of humanity within them. revealing violence as both entertainment and entitlement. Throughout this ordeal, Marlena's lack of visible reaction is striking. She does not scream or plead, not because she accepts her fate, but because she understands the reality of her environment. Any outward resistance would likely end in immediate death. Her stillness becomes a survival response, shaped by fear and careful observation. She listens, watches, and absorbs every detail, knowing that impulsive defiance would only worsen her situation. Marcus's dominance is rooted in intimidation rather than intelligence. He underestimates Marlena completely, assuming that her silence means submission and her loneliness means helplessness. His arrogance blinds him to the danger of his own vulnerability. While he and his men believe they control the situation, their focus on power and pleasure leaves them careless. They never consider that the woman they are terrorizing is capable of thinking, planning, and acting. This section of the story exposes the harsh reality of male violence in a lawless space. Marcus and his companions are not portrayed as monsters born from nowhere, but as products of a system that allows cruelty to go unchecked. Their actions reflect a world where women are left unprotected and where power is defined by the ability to dominate. In this environment, Marlena's endurance is not weakness, but the quiet preparation for survival in a world that offers her no mercy. Marlena's response to the violence imposed upon her is quiet, deliberate, and rooted in survival rather than rage. Faced with the certainty that resistance will lead to her death, she turns inward, allowing her fear and grief to sharpen her awareness. While Marcus and his men believe they have stripped her of all power, Marlena begins to reclaim control through patience and calculation. Her resistance does not come in the form of confrontation, but through the careful use of what is already within her reach. In the kitchen, a space traditionally associated with care and nourishment, Marlena finds the means to protect herself. She notices poisonous berries, known for their lethal properties, growing nearby. With steady hands and a controlled expression, she crushes the berries and mixes them into the soup she is preparing for Marcus and his companions. The act is silent and precise, carried out without hesitation or emotion. The soup, meant to satisfy their hunger, becomes a weapon that requires no physical struggle and no warning. By choosing poison, Marlena ensures that the violence inflicted upon her will end without a direct confrontation. As the men eat, unaware of what they have consumed, the balance of power shifts. One by one, Marcus's companions collapse and die without realizing what has happened. Their strength, numbers, and weapons become meaningless. The quiet nature of their deaths mirrors the quiet suffering they inflicted upon Marlena, reinforcing the idea that power can be dismantled without spectacle. The house that had been filled with threats and laughter falls silent once again. Marcus survives longer than the others, separated from the group and consumed by his own desires. When he attempts to force himself on Marlena, the final illusion of control shatters. In this moment, Marlena reaches for Marcus's sword, the very symbol of his authority and intimidation. With a single decisive strike, she ends his life. The act is swift and controlled, driven by necessity rather than anger. By killing Marcus with his own weapon, Marlena turns his power against him, stripping it of its meaning. After the violence ends, Marlena burns Marcus's musical instrument, an object tied to his identity and presence. This act signifies her rejection of the terror he brought into her life. Despite the full moon illuminating the night outside, her inner world remains dark and heavy. The deaths do not bring relief or triumph, only exhaustion and grief. She lies beside her husband's body, resting her head on his shoulder, seeking comfort in the only presence that remains familiar. This act of resistance transforms Marlena, not into a hero, but into a survivor shaped by necessity. Her actions are not framed as revenge, but as a response to a system that left her with no alternatives. The violence she commits is a direct consequence of the violence imposed upon her. In reclaiming her agency, Marlena exposes the fragility of power built on fear and demonstrates that even in the most oppressive circumstances, survival can take the form of quiet defiance. After the night of violence, Marlena sets out on a journey that is as much emotional as it is physical, carrying Marcus's severed head in a bag. She leaves her isolated home with the intention of reporting the crimes to the authorities. The act of taking the head with her is not driven by shock value or vengeance, but by practicality. In a land where words hold little weight, proof is necessary. Her decision reflects an understanding of how justice operates in a broken system, where evidence must be visible and undeniable to be acknowledged at all. As she travels, Marlena encounters Novi, a pregnant woman searching for her husband. Novi's presence introduces a parallel narrative of vulnerability and endurance. Like Marlena, she is navigating a world that offers little protection to women. Novi's pregnancy adds urgency and emotional depth to her journey, as she desperately wants her child to be born with a father present. The bond that forms between the two women is quiet but significant, built on shared suffering rather than comfort. Through conversation, Marlena reveals the horrors of the previous night, and Novi listens without judgment, recognizing the weight of Marlena's experience. The journey exposes the failures of the social and legal structures meant to protect people. When Marlena finally reaches the police station, her hopes for justice begin to erode. The officers are indifferent and poorly equipped, lacking transportation, resources, and urgency. Her report is treated as a minor issue rather than a life-threatening crime. Marlena carefully avoids revealing the full extent of the violence, understanding that complete honesty may not bring protection, only imprisonment. The delay and apathy of the authorities make it clear that justice will not arrive in time, if at all. Meanwhile, the threat has not ended. Franz, one of Marcus's accomplices who survived, discovers the massacre and begins hunting Marlena. His pursuit represents the persistence of violence in a land without effective law enforcement. As Marlena moves forward, danger follows close behind, closing the distance between her and those seeking revenge. The road becomes a space of constant tension, where safety feels temporary and fragile. The system's failure forces Marlena into isolation once again. Realizing that the police cannot protect her, she retrieves Marcus's head and continues on her own. Her path crosses once more with Novi, whose fate becomes entwined with hers when Franz captures her and uses her as bait. The cycle of violence expands, drawing in innocent lives and deepening the consequences of the initial crime. This part of the story highlights a world where justice is slow, incomplete, and often unreachable. Marlena's journey reveals how survival in such a place depends not on institutions, but on individual resilience and the fragile solidarity between those who share suffering. The road does not offer resolution, only movement forward, carrying grief, fear, and the constant awareness that danger is never far behind. The final phase of the story brings Marlena and Novi together in a moment where survival, loss, and fragile hope intersect. After the failure of the authorities and the continued threat posed by Franz, violence once again finds its way into Marlena's life. Despite her attempts to seek justice through lawful means, Franz's return to Marlena's house marks the inescapable reality of the world she lives in, where danger is persistent and resolution is never clean. By using Novi as leverage, Franz reinforces how easily innocent lives become collateral in cycles of revenge and power. Inside the house, tension reaches its peak. Franz believes he has finally regained control, convinced that fear and force will give him dominance just as it did before. Marlena is once again placed in a position where resistance appears impossible. Yet this time, she is no longer alone. Novi, despite her physical vulnerability and imminent labor, refuses to remain a passive witness. Her actions are driven by desperation, maternal instinct, and a deep sense of justice. When she intervenes and kills Franz, the act mirrors Marlena's earlier resistance, showing how survival can demand extreme action when no other protection exists. Immediately after the violence, Novi goes into labor. The sudden transition from death to birth underscores the fragile balance between destruction and renewal. Marlena assists Novi through childbirth with care and calm, offering support in a moment that contrasts sharply with the brutality that preceded it. The birth of the child does not erase the trauma they have endured, but it represents continuity in a world that constantly threatens to erase lives. In that moment, the two women share a bond forged not by choice, but by circumstance and resilience. Despite this moment of connection, the story does not offer a traditional sense of closure. Novi's future remains uncertain, marked by abandonment and mistrust from her husband. Marlena, too, carries the weight of what she has done, fully aware that her actions, though necessary, place her outside the protection of any legal or moral system recognized by society. The island they inhabit does not promise forgiveness, justice, or safety. It offers only survival to those strong enough to claim it. When Marlena finally leaves Novi and the child behind, her departure is quiet and solitary. She walks forward carrying grief, responsibility, and the knowledge that she must continue alone. Her journey does not end with redemption or peace, but with agency. She has reclaimed control over her life in a world that repeatedly sought to strip it away. The land remains unchanged, harsh, indifferent, and lawless, but Marlena has changed within it. The story closes on the understanding that survival is not victory, and endurance is not freedom. Yet Marlena's ability to walk away on her own terms becomes a powerful statement. In a place where power belongs to those who take it by force, she survives by refusing to disappear. Her journey ends not with justice, but with persistence, marking a quiet defiance against a world that never offered her protection. If you found this story powerful and thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more intense and meaningful movie stories. Here are more videos you may enjoy, check them out. Thanks for watching.